Hi there, this is Heather of Shutterbug 101. Today I'll be going over the Nikon mirrorless full-frame camera, the Z5, and its kit lens, the 24-50. Let's get started. The Nikon Z5 is a mirrorless full-frame camera with a 24 megapixel sensor and 5-axis stabilization, 273 focus points, and a tilting touch LCD screen. It has a continuous drive of 4.5 frames per second and shoots 4K video up to 30 frames. This camera has dual SD card slots that are UHS 2 compatible, a microphone and headphone port, has Wi-Fi to transfer images, and is environmentally sealed. Today we will be going over the buttons, doors, and menus to help you find your way around this camera. Going over the Nikon Z5 today, this is the newest full-frame mirrorless camera that Nikon has had released. Very similar build to the Z6 and Z7, but also it has a very similar dial and button layout to the Z50, so it's kind of like the Z50 but as a full frame. So it just, you don't have the display screen that the Z6 and Z7 have. This is what they were essentially going for here, was something that was going to be cost effective for somebody that wanted to get into the mirrorless full frame world while still being able to use the Nikon Z mount, and also without having to swap over to the XQD cards. For a lot of people that was a big kind of internal mental battle when buying the Z6 or Z7 when they've had Nikons in the past that have run on SD cards. You had to completely abandon your SD cards because all you had was the XQD card slot. Now this guy has dual SD card slots, which are UHS 2 compatible, and this guy has the amazing grip that the Z cameras do, and it's a nice weight to it as well. So we're going to go ahead and go over the walkthrough here. Now this is one of the kit lenses that comes with the Z5. This is the 24-50, so it's a nice basic lens. It's a 4 to 6.3. What throws a lot of people off is this does have a locking mechanism, so when you do turn the camera on the first time around, it does let you know before taking photos, rotate the zoom ring to extend the lens. So it just takes a little bit of pressure, don't force it, but it does take a little bit of pressure here to just extend it to the 24 spot where the lines line up, and then you are ready to shoot. And then this is just how long it goes, and then to fully collapse it, you just do it there, turn the camera off. This button here, of course, is going to be to remove the lens. We have that. There's our full frame sensor. To put a lens back on, you put the white dot on the lens, line it up to the white dot on the camera, turn and click. Very simple. We do have a couple function buttons here. Now for my hands, this is a little uncomfortable. I honestly don't think I would ever use these, but for some people that's kind of an adjustment. So you can program these to do whatever you would like them to, which is kind of a nice feature there. So out of the box, the function 1 button is going to be programmed to change your white balance, and then function 2 is actually going to control your autofocus mode and autofocus area, which we'll go over here in more detail in a moment. But again, those are changeable in case you did not like that. And then we have an adjustment wheel here in the front for different settings and modes and all sorts of things. On this side of the camera, as I had just opened previously, you have your dual SD card slots. On the lid itself, you can see that it does say push to eject. It's a nice little reminder there, and what direction to put the cards in. On this side of the camera, you can see we have a couple doors here, and on the outside of the door, it does tell us what port is underneath. Microphone port and headphone port. It does indicate that we do have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth available on this camera. This is where our shutter release is going to go for a wired remote. We have our HDMI port here, and then a USB port here as well, which also does charge the battery while on camera. So a nice little travel feature there for when you don't have an AC outlet. You just charge the battery right in the camera as you go. This is also used to upgrade firmware, but also used to transfer images to your computer as well if you don't have a card reader. On the bottom of the camera here, you'll see that we do have one door here, which is going to store our battery. They did release a new battery. They did release a new battery recently, which is going to be the EL15C. It's just, you know, it's one of the newer models. You can still use one of the older EL15 batteries. This is just going to be more energy efficient for your camera. It's going to last a little bit longer, so something to keep in mind. We do have our universal screw mount here for our tripod. Going to the top of the camera here, you'll see that we have, you know, nothing really going on top. It's very simple overlay to this camera, which for me makes it very underwhelming, and I absolutely like that because I don't like to be overwhelmed when I'm working with the camera. We do have a hot shoe here because, as on most full frame cameras, there are no pop-up flashes. So if you wanted to get some extra light, get the burst of light that you need, you can get a speed light to mount on top here. Otherwise, you can use this as a cold shoe to mount the mic on if you're using like a zoom mic. We have our diopter here to the side of our viewfinder. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull that out and adjust. You know, it's like going to the doctor when they kind of slide the slides in front of your eyes, go slide 1, slide 2. You know, it helps you adjust it so it's clear for your eyes, because someone that wears glasses is going to see through this a little bit differently than I would. So it's nice that you can customize that as well. We do have our mode dial here. So the green is going to be our automatic mode. That's where the camera's taking full control. You have little to no control over your settings, but it's a good mode to start on while you're adjusting to this camera. P mode is going to be your first step off of auto. That's going to be program. It's going to still allow the camera to adjust a lot of the settings, but you have control over certain aspects, like where you want to focus, how you want to focus, where you want to meter, do you want to change shutter speed or aperture, that type of thing. And it'll give you that control in P mode. There's also S mode here. That's our shutter speed mode. That's where you primarily control the shutter speed while the camera determines the aperture. That would be the light intake of the camera. So you would use this mode when you're trying to capture sports, animals, any type of movement, or maybe even show movement. So you want to get that nice blurred water over the waterfall effect. You have your A mode, which of course is going to be aperture priority. This is going to allow you to control the opening in the lens to either let more light in or less light in. This also gives you that nice blurred background, sharp foreground effect. So great for portraiture work, landscapes, macro, if you have a macro lens, of course. This is probably my favorite mode overall. And then we have M for full manual. If you want to learn more about your P, S, and A modes, I do have videos on those in my Camera Basics playlist, so check those out. Full manual mode, the camera's only doing what you tell it to, so you're probably not going to jump into this mode right away. If you are, you're very brave and you're better than I am. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's all about how you learn. But a lot of people have come to me and said they have abandoned photography in the past because an instructor told them you're not a photographer unless you only shoot on manual, and that's completely untrue. So if anyone has ever told you that or makes you feel that way, block them out of your life because they're not worth having. Okay. So we have our U1 through U3 settings here. These are kind of customary settings, so you can go ahead and program those to do whatever you'd like, to set however you'd like. If you like your video a certain way, if you say you shoot in studio lighting and you want to save those perfect settings, you can absolutely do that to one of these settings here. That way you can return back to them at a later time. And then we're back to our auto mode. So the rest of the walkthrough, I'm going to be on my P mode. So if you're following along, make sure that you're in your P mode as well, because in automatic mode, you get far less options to look at in the menu and in your quick menu than you do on your P mode. We have another adjustment wheel here as well as in the front to control aperture, shutter speed, different modes. We have our red button here, which is going to be our video recording mode here. So on this camera, in order to record a video, there's a little switch back here from the camera for picture taking mode to video. So you'd have to switch it to video. You would hit the red button to start recording, hit it again to stop recording. Pretty simple there. You just have to remember to switch that switch. We have our ISO button, which is going to control our image sensitivity to light. We have our exposure button here, which is going to give us that control to give us a little bit lighter, a little bit darker. So if we hit this button here and then we adjust it with our back wheel, you can see if we go negative numbers, it gets darker, plus numbers, it actually gets brighter. So it allows us to get a little bit lighter, a little bit darker without changing any major settings. And going to the back of the camera here. So you can see that we have our play button to look back at pictures we've taken, our trash can button to delete ones we don't like. We have our viewfinder here, which if you bring your face up to the viewfinder, it automatically turns on. Take your face away, turns off. Pretty neat. We've already gone over the photography, videography switch here. We do have a display button here, which just changes the display of the back screen here. So just information. We have grid lines, a level, all sorts of different options here. Personally, my favorite is this one here, just because it still gives you the basics. It'll tell you your battery level, it'll tell you your basic settings, how many pictures you have left. And then of course, keep in mind that this is also touchscreen. So right now it's on touch to focus. If you hit this button here, you can turn that off. So what you can do is you can adjust the focus point through the touchscreen. You can touch to autofocus. So you just touch to focus on here as well, where it'll focus for you. You have your touch shutter, which it means that if you click to focus, it'll take a picture once it's focused after you've touched the screen. Otherwise, you can turn it off completely. I personally just like the touch autofocus option where I can move the point around and it'll focus for me. We do have a back button autofocus, as we do with the majority of Nikon cameras. It's a pretty big desire for these guys just because they've had them in the past. So you can focus with this back button rather than your shutter button if you prefer. We do have a joystick here which will also allow you to move around your focus point. The I for information button, this is going to be your quick menu. Your quick menu is going to give you immediate access to things that you might change on a regular basis. And you can actually change your quick menu to be things that you would change on a regular basis. But out of the box, you can see that we have picture control. It's how it controls and displays color, so you could do more vivid. I just set it on automatic. We have image quality, you have JPEG, RAW and JPEG. You have your flash mode if you do have a flash on the camera. Your Wi-Fi connection if you would like to turn that on or off. Your release mode, so that's going to be your drive mode, so for a single picture taken or continuous pictures at the 4.5 frames continuous drive, or even a timer. You have your autofocus area mode where the camera autofocuses. You have your white balance, so your temperature control, warmer or cooler temperatures, but auto white balance does fairly well on its own. If you had it on JPEG, you would choose the JPEG size. Personally, I would always keep it on L for large. Metering, where it's taking the light from. Your memory card information, if you have both cards in. Right now I just have one. Your vibration direction, the built-in stabilization to the camera, which, by the way, you want to turn off if you have on a tripod. And then your focus mode, how your camera autofocuses, being AFS for autofocus single for a single subject, somebody that's posing, not moving much, where it focuses and locks on. AFC, which is going to be autofocus continuous, which continuously focuses as the subject moves. And then you have manual focus, which allows you to manually focus with the lens itself. We have our directional pad and confirmation button here for OK. When we look at pictures with the playback mode, these are specifically to zoom into the picture to see if it's, if it's sharp, if someone's blinking in a group, that type of thing. This will not zoom for you when it comes to taking a picture. You have to zoom with the lens itself. It's pretty manual there, so keep that in mind. We have another access to our drive mode here. So again, the single frame, the continuous frames, the timer. And also, if you want to get out of any of these menus here, a little shortcut for you, a little escape button, just push your shutter button halfway down, get you right back to shooting mode. And now we're going to go ahead and access the menu. So starting at the first tab there, you can see that that symbol is the same as our playback our playback button on the camera. So this is going to be our playback menu for pictures you've already taken. This is where you can delete pictures, you can change the folder, you can do the image review, which I personally like to have on. You can rotate tall images for that to be automatic. You can do a slideshow, that type of thing. The next one here is going to be our photo shooting menu, specifically for the photography part of the camera. This is where you can reset your shooting menu. So if you're playing with this and you change something, a good way to see if you can fix it is by just resetting the photo shooting menu. We have different storage folders, so if you want to make new folders, change the file naming system, change the roll plate in the slot 2 card. So right now I have it set to overflow. You can have it do RAW to one and JPEG to another. You know, a lot of customization there. Your image area, if you want to use the full frame or crop sensor. You have image quality. Again, that's on your quick menu, so is image size. ISO sensitivity settings. So if you're just getting into photography and ISO is kind of mysterious for you, what I would do is I would set your ISO to auto while you're figuring out your aperture and your shutter speed, and I would set this to between 100 and 6400. That way, if you're going from indoors to outdoors, or you go from night shooting to shooting in the morning the next day, you don't have to worry about checking your ISO every few seconds. You can just let the camera kind of adjust that for you while you figure out your shutter speed or aperture. We have white balance, set picture control. Again, these are found on your quick menu here, the I button. So a lot of these I'm just gonna kind of browse through and tell you really just what you need to know, because who wants to look at all this information and be told what you're never gonna use, or at least very rarely. But if any of you guys have questions, by the way, if I do skip over something in the menu or you want to know something more in detail, let me know. I'd be happy to answer any questions. You have your long exposure noise reduction. I like to have this off because I like to have full editing control when I edit my raw images in Lightroom. Otherwise, you can turn it on. It does help. Same with the high ISO noise reduction, your vignette controlled, fraction composition, flicker reduction for shooting, your metering. I mean, a lot of these you're just not going to use very much. Your focus mode and autofocus area mode, again, on your quick menu, vibration reduction, multiple exposure, your high dynamic range, interval timer shooting or time lapse, which is pretty cool. Focus shift shooting or silent photography. Now, if you do put your camera on silent mode, keep in mind that's going to turn off quite a few features. So if you do turn this mode on and find that your camera's not doing something all of a sudden, that may be something you want to look into. Okay, the next one here is going to be movie shooting menu. It's going to be extremely similar to your photography shooting menu. It's just going to be more so around your movie mode here. So you're going to have your quality, the destination of the card you want it in, the image area. So if you want 1080 versus 4K, what frame rate, what kind of movie quality, movie type, again, ISO settings. So the rest of that's going to pretty much be the same as what we just went through here. We have our custom setting menu. Now this is where it gets pretty buried here. So we'll go ahead and we'll start in autofocus, and when we scroll down and just continue to go through these. So autofocus, you can do your autofocus continuous priority selection versus your autofocus single, your focus tracking, if you would like to lock onto that. Autofocus area for autofocus face, you can do eye detection, face and eye detection, animal eye detection, which is really neat. Focus points used, if you want to use all of them or just, a few select focus points. You can store points by orientation, focus point options, low light autofocus. And then it kind of goes into metering and exposure. If you change, you're very rarely going to find yourself in here. That's why this quick menu exists. So don't feel too overwhelmed about all this. That's all going to be for metering and exposure. You have your timers and auto exposure lock, power off delay. You have your continuous low shooting speed, which you can change. The high speed is going to be only 4.5 in this camera. Max continuous release is up to 100. You have your exposure delay mode, your shutter type, which I just would keep on auto for the most part. File number sequence, apply settings to live view. So here's your shooting display. Framing grid, if you would like the grid to be on. I personally could go with or without it. The grid will help you straighten things and give you a better composition. Peaking highlights, view all in continuous mode. You have your flash and bracketing settings here. We have our customized the eye menu. So if there's like one thing like, oh, I will never use the Wi-Fi, it's just not something I'm going to do, you can change that to something else. Change your other custom controls like the function buttons in the front that we went over. You can change if you want your OK button to do something. You can customize the command dials, the U1 through U3 we talked about. Reverse indicators. You know, you can change all that in both the picture taking mode and the movie mode. You can have them do two completely different things. So it's pretty neat. Then we have our setup menu here. Formatting your card. Now, I'm gonna rest my elbows for a minute while I talk about this. So, formatting your card is something that's really important to know, and I talk about it in every walkthrough that I do, because you either find out on accident or, you know, you get a corrupted card. So, formatting your card and what it does and why you would use it. Formatting your card is going to allow you to completely, permanently erase every picture off your card to brand new. It's going to completely wipe it out. It'll be nice and fresh for all the new shooting you have to do. Now, this is only if you're not the type of person to go and buy a new card for every circumstance, event, whatever. Me personally, I reuse my cards. So once you back up to your pictures, to your computer, to a hard drive, to a cloud system, whatever it is, you've made sure they're safe, they're off the card. Before you go to your next event, your vacation, your trip, wherever it is, you put your card inside the camera and you go to Format Memory Card in the Setup menu, clear it nice and clean, and that's it. And the reason you want to do that instead of using the trash can on all your photos is because the trash can essentially recycles the image. It still holds on to the data in the background of the card, which when you just take pictures, delete, take pictures, delete, take pictures, delete, and it just overwrites over and over again, that can cause corruption down the line. It'll lock you out of your card, you won't be able to get your pictures. It's just a very disappointing trip that you have to make and hope that somebody can get in there and recover them. And unfortunately, that's not always the case. So formatting your card is very, very helpful in that situation, after you make sure that they're safe on the computer. You have save user settings, reset user settings, your language, your time zone and date, your monitor brightness, bring this up closer to you guys again, your viewfinder brightness. It's all about the camera itself. You know, autofocus fine tune options, clean image sensor, pixel mapping, image comments, which is kind of interesting, copyright information's beep options if you want to hear the beep when it focuses. Personally, I like to have that on. That's just me though. You have your touch controls if you want the touch screen on or off, HDMI option, you have your wireless remote options, assign a wireless remote, your airplane mode, which I would keep on if you're not going to be doing any wireless transferring to your phone anytime soon, just because it can help save some battery. Connect to a smart device, connect to PC, your battery info, USB power delivery. That's if you want to charge in camera, power saving mode. We have save and load menu options, reset all settings. That way you can start out fresh if you find that you did something wrong or you don't know what you did. And you can check your firmware version here as well, so you can see if you need any updates. We do have a retouch menu. Naturally, I don't have any pictures taken on this card, so can't really explore too many of these. But you have like raw processing, you can trim, you can crop, you can do red eye corrections, straighten, you can do distortion control, all sorts of different little things inside the camera. Personally, me, I'd like to have my large computer monitor so I can see everything that's going on versus a 3-inch screen, but that's my preference. In a bind, this can definitely help you. And then you have the My menu set up. So the My menu allows you to go through all these tabs on your menu here and allow you to pick and choose what is the most important to you. Things that maybe you don't want on your quick menu or maybe that you can't put on your quick menu, like formatting your card. You can add them to your My Menu tab, and then all you have to do is, instead of digging through all these, you just go to My Menu. And it's there, it's ready for you, and it's another thing for you to customize. that pretty much sums up the Z5. For me, it is highly comparable to the Z6, just going to be a little easier to use, have a few less features, but overall is a great starter camera for someone that just wants to get into the full frame world, that maybe wants to explore in mirrorless, and is more of like a hobby photographer. If you guys have any questions about this camera, if you have another camera you would like me to review, maybe a specific lens to compare another lens to, or a product review even, I'd be happy to do those too. Let me know in the comments below, be happy to get back to you. And until next time, keep your eye out for inspiration, Shutterbugs. Bye.